Jedi Fallen Order sequel, Jedi Survivor, was one that blew away fans with the story, the twists, and the open world. The one thing that fans did not enjoy was the character of Dagan Gera. Many fans thought that he was redundant, making jokes that his obsession with Tanalorr was his only character point. An angry player on Reddit even commented that Dagan Gera was a fish out of water potential, completely ignored, acts like a cartoon villain, and then dies. While many thoughts surrounding Dagan are correct, aka his obsession with Tanalorr, there is more to his character than meets the eye. His importance in the story is overlooked, and his character helps to put in perspective why Tanalorr and Cal could ultimately fail. We will look at this in 3 parts: Dagan's background and personality, including his obsession with Tanalorr, his relationship with others including Cal, Ravis, and Santari Khri, and we will be looking at the symbolic representation that surrounds him, including his lightsaber and the Force hallucination that leads to his downfall. Let's first take a look at Dagan himself in order to better understand who he is. When players first meet Dagan Gera, they only see what Cal Kestis is seeing, leading to a false hope that Cal has finally met another Jedi survivor who can take up the same fight Cal has. In the flashback that Cal sees, we are provided with an insight about Dagan's personality and his motivations. We see Dagan's pride, arrogance, and impatience.
They've been in there for hours.
Council members are not known for their hasty judgments. Especially Master Rancesis.
My duel with the Jedi didn't take this long.
These traits only prove themselves further throughout the rest of the game. We see in the battle after Dagan bleeds his crystal that he calls Cal different insults.
How feeble, meager, weak, trivial.
Proving that he believes himself to be better than Cal. We see later that he dismisses Ravis's comments about how Cal could be his equal.
Dagan, listen. The Jedi is a threat.
Not now that we have this.
Proving further that he is arrogant in his own skills. However, we also see things from his fellow Jedi, Santari Khri's perspective. We learn that he is a great Jedi who is friendly and kind, but also a cunning warrior, a Jedi who wishes to do good for other Jedi.
Well, if you're going to teach younglings, you had better learn.
This, however, is shattered when we meet Dagan as a changed and formidable figure. Since the game is written from Cal's perspective, we don't see how much anger Dagan must have at being told that the Jedi are gone.
But things have changed since you've been gone. A Sith Lord corrupted the Republic, turned it into an empire. They destroyed the Order.
From Cal's perspective, this is an opportunity to gain an ally, someone who can fight with him who was once a great Jedi himself. From Dagan's perspective, things are different. Cal never said how long Dagan was in the tank. With being told that the Jedi are now gone, it would make sense that Dagan would jump to the conclusion that it is the same council that had abandoned him, a council that was stupid and ignorant to the truth of how great they could become. Even if Dagan didn't come to this conclusion, the belief that the Jedi Order is stupid and ignorant hasn't changed. This belief is only confirmed when Cal tells him that the Jedi fell. The anger Dagan feels is then projected onto Cal, the last remaining Jedi, in their battle.
How feeble, meager.
Dagan says these words not because he believes Cal to be these things, but because his anger combines the Jedi who have betrayed him and what he thinks of them to Cal, who has been surviving longer than being in the Order. Dagan doesn't know that Cal was a child when all of this occurred. He just doesn't care. To him, the Jedi are ignorant, and Cal, being the last Jedi, is only going to be in the way of Dagan finding Tanalorr. Even mentioning the word Tanalorr in this video will cause players to groan. It is the main reason why people view him as a cartoonish villain. However, this discovered planet that is undetectable because of the Kobo Abyss becomes important to all of the characters, including Dagan. To Cal, it means finally being able to retire since the Empire could never find him there. To Cere, it means a new home for refugees and survivors. To Bode, it means safety for his daughter. To Dagan, it is his accomplishment, a manifestation of his own pride and arrogance. While bleeding his crystal, he mentions,
It was my discovery, my home, and they just expected me to throw it away?
to many, a home is a place of love or safety. To Dagan, home means his identity. This is the place where he was going to build himself to be even greater than he had been before, a place where he would be glorified as a Jedi who was not only a warrior, but also a man who created something great. The reason why he is so attached to Tanalorr is because he is Tanalorr. The very basis of his own identity begins with this planet. Therefore, it makes sense why he fights so hard to keep it. It is the place where he created an image so powerful and mixed with his own pride and arrogance that he cannot let it go as to let go of himself and his beliefs completely. Dagan Gera at first glance in the game doesn't seem like he's well-rounded. All we see is his love for Tanalorr. However, as we continue further into the game, we see his relationships with other characters and therefore push further into his character. While Dagan doesn't spend too much time with these characters, each one reveals more about why his character is so important to the story. The only person we see Dagan communicate with in a friendly manner is Rayvis. Rayvis in this game is an interesting character. Most players overlooked Rayvis at first. We see he is the leader of the Bedlam Raiders and that he understands who the Jedi are in order to manipulate Cal into standing down. As we continue through the game, we learn that he was defeated by Dagan Gera and after, swore to serve Dagan until his oath was fulfilled. When we see the interactions between Dagan and Rayvis, we learn that their relationship is one of loyalty and servitude, but also one of camaraderie. We see this mostly through one scene where Cal is listening to Dagan and Rayvis in the elevator.
All those years of incarceration dull your edge.
Sharp enough to see the Jedi might be your equal.
Say it again and I'll cut out your tongue.
It'll grow back.
In this scene, while Dagan does threaten Rayvis by saying he will cut out his tongue, Rayvis doesn't seem to mind. In fact, Rayvis is what is known as a Gendai warrior, a mass collection of regenerative tentacles in which they can heal quickly. In Rayvis's mind, cutting out his tongue doesn't matter, and Dagan also knows this. Their banter here isn't one of a villain threatening his henchmen, but one of friends who are so familiar with each other that they can threaten the other and know it holds no meaning. It's also important to note that when everyone else in Dagan's life has turned against him because of his actions, Rayvis is the only one that stays. In fact, he helps Dagan try to achieve his goals. Rayvis is the only friend that Dagan has left, and this is partially due to his servitude to him. However, later on in this scene, we see Dagan try to continue this friendship. Later in this essay, we will take a look at Dagan and Centauri's friendship and the idea of a shared dream. It is important to note that the same themes occur here as well. Dagan says,
Once we are on Tanalorr, perhaps we can dream up a new war. You and I.
This seems to intrigue Rayvis as he has just complained of there being many wars but no honor in them. He replies,
Perhaps.
Later on, when Cal fights Rayvis, we learn a lot about Dagan and Rayvis's relationship. We learn that Dagan bested him in combat and earned his loyalty, his servitude. He helped Dagan and the Jedi Order until Dagan felt betrayed and then helped him to defeat the Jedi Dagan once helped. It shows how far back their friendship starts and why Rayvis is so loyal to Dagan. Interestingly, Rayvis states this one line.
Time does not diminish my loyalties. Without a code, you can only serve yourself.
There are many such lines about having codes and what it means to not have one anymore. This line can shed some light on why Rayvis doesn't outright agree to dreaming up a new war. When Cal first meets Dagan, we see his lightsaber color being originally yellow. In Star Wars lore, a yellow lightsaber represents those who are highly dedicated to the Jedi Order and possess wisdom and knowledge. After he bleeds his crystal to red, this could be symbolic to the idea that he has not only lost his wisdom and knowledge, but that he is also not a servant to the Order anymore. Instead, his servitude is more towards the idea of Tanalorr. He is his own leader to Rayvis and the Bedlam Raiders, and will use those assets to gain more power and glory, as stated by the end fight, when Dagan tells Cal that he will use Tanalorr to take over the Empire.
Within the Abyss, the Empire cannot reach us. I will forge these raiders into an elite army led by disciples trained in the Force at my temple. Then, when the time is right, I will strike out and cleanse this galaxy with fire.
By the time we reach Dagan and Rayvis in the elevator, Rayvis knows that Dagan no longer has a code and is only serving himself. Rayvis seems to be the more interesting character in this moment, and many fans would agree. While he is a servant to Dagan and has a code that he lives for, he is the only one that seems free from the torment of servitude to a person or order. Dagan is a servant to Tanalorr, fighting to keep his identity and pride that he has always had. Cal is still a servant to the Jedi Order and the fight that his master told him to carry on.
War is not over, my Padawan. Hold the line.
Rayvis is a servant to Dagan, but also knows where to find the honor that eludes the two Jedi and can leave his servitude to Dagan at any time. The war that Dagan wants holds no honor in it, and Rayvis knows this, but Dagan is still his friend, so instead of saying that he will join him or deny him outright, he says, perhaps. The air between Dagan's proposal and Rayvis's answer shows he knows what is truly going on, just like how he can see that Cal is Dagan's equal, and that he is a threat to Dagan's goals. Dagan doesn't believe this, as is seen back in the elevator.
Dagan, listen. The Jedi is a threat.
Not now that we have this.
Realizing this, Rayvis can only do so much to serve his friend. If Dagan doesn't see how he could be outpowered, there isn't much Rayvis could do. His loyalty and care towards Dagan is still reciprocated though. Dagan does care about Rayvis as stated during the final fight with Cal and Dagan, in which we will discuss later. Before the events of Jedi Survivor, we can also see Dagan Gera's relationship with Santari Khri. When we first see their relationship together, we see what kind of relationship they actually have.
Remind me not to let you name the next world we discover.
Give it time. You didn't like me much at first either.
Jury's still out.
In this flashback, we see that Santari and Dagan have a flirtatious dialogue. Santari doesn't have to tease Dagan about him guiding her through Tanalorr. However, their dialogue quickly moving from one person to the other provides information about how close they are to each other. They have a relationship where they can tease each other. They're able to joke about the other's strengths and weaknesses. When we see Dagan becoming impatient about how long the council is taking with their decision, we see her hand rest on Dagan's chest and Dagan reach for her arm. With their closeness and their intimacy, we can see that their relationship isn't just a relationship but something more. They care about each other in a way that is more than friendly. Santari even goes as far as to state that she has faith in him, a word that denotes complete trust or confidence in someone. She believes in him, and he trusts her. While this doesn't lead to a conclusion that they are romantically involved, it is at least inferred that they have had a closer relationship, and that does lead some players to believe that it is romantic. During the High Republic era in the Star Wars universe, Jedi were allowed to form romantic relationships and marry since the standards of that time were looser than the ones during the prequel era. Jedi during this time were still asked not to form these attachments, but it wasn't as strict. As time continued, the Jedi found that these types of relationships could lead to the dark side and placed a permanent ban on romantic relationships and marriage. Jedi Knight Indira Stokes remarked that love, experiencing, and embracing joy, affection, and even grief was a part of the light side. However, a Jedi couldn't be a slave of those emotions. The Jedi found that those of them who did participate in romantic relationships and were married found it difficult to keep themselves from forming an attachment that would lead them to be slaves of these emotions, particularly negative emotions such as fear. That being said, while Dagan and Centauri's relationship, whether it was romantic or not, was not as restricted as Anakin and Padme's relationship, or even hanging over them like Cal and Marin's. This provides an interesting point, as it isn't Dagan's love for Centauri that leads him down the dark path, but that of Tanalorr. As mentioned earlier, Dagan found his home and therefore his identity in his finding of Tanalorr. This attachment to not a person, but a place, and that fear of losing it, as well as the anger that Dagan felt towards the Council deciding to leave it behind, made him more susceptible to the dark side. It is also interesting to note how Centauri reacts to this change in Dagan. Before fighting Ravis in the game, we see yet another flashback before Dagan is put in the tank. By this time, Dagan has already killed some Jedi and is on a darker path. Centauri pulls her lightsaber ready to stand against him. However, she is conflicted. Dagan states,
But you want what I want. Why else would you deceive the Council?
As stated earlier, Centauri has complete trust in Dagan. She wants to believe in Tanalorr and the good that it can do. Now that she knows what Dagan has done, she sees what he has become, what Tanalorr has done to him. She even begs him to surrender so they can still figure things out. Even with Dagan wanting her to join him to receive the glory for their discovery, she understands that they are on two different sides. It's no longer them doing good in the world. It is now his terrible actions on one side, and the good she still believes they can do on the other. Even at that moment, she cannot separate her feelings from what she must do to stop him. She knows she must stop him and does so by cutting off his arm. However, she still cannot separate her feelings and calls for a Bacta tank which will preserve him.
Get a medical droid in here and prepare a Bacta tank!
Even though she does as the Council ordered by purging Z's memory of how to navigate the Koboh Abyss, she tells Z that she must reach Dagan and give him the key to Tanalorr, or else Tanalorr might be lost. She still believes that Dagan is good and that Tanalorr can do good as well. She even says this after the player's first fight with Dagan. She states,
The Council may have given up on you, but I know who you truly are, Dagan.
Since we have discussed earlier that Tanalorr is Dagan's identity, it would make sense that Centauri still believes both can do good, so she preserves him in Bacta. This has negative consequences for the future. Dagan survives until Cal frees him. This freedom then has consequences as Dagan carves through innocence, becoming the true leader of the Bedlam Raiders, who have hurt so many people, and then providing a lightsaber to Bode, who causes that much more destruction. By Centauri not being able to sever her attachment and still believing in him so much so that she preserves him, she causes that much more pain. This relationship with Dagan and Centauri goes back to the foil between Dagan and Cal. A foil is a character that contrasts another character in order to highlight certain qualities. As Cal starts his journey with the dark side, his attachments to Marin, the fight against the Empire, and Tanalorr start to take a toll on him. Just like how Dagan's identity rests purely on Tanalorr, Cal's identity rests solely on fighting the Empire. At the beginning of the game, Cal mentions to Grease,
We both know what happens when I stay in one place too long. Maybe. Yeah, one of us has to keep fighting.
Someone has to hold the line, and why wouldn't it be a Jedi? Cal views himself as the only Jedi left, as when stated when the senator demands that he leads him to other Jedi.
Before I deliver you to the Emperor, you will lead me to the remaining Jedi.
I can't. It's just me.
As he realizes that he isn't the only Jedi left, he feels his burdens lifted.
But you're here now. We can fight them together.
Only to realize that the Jedi he hoped to band with is now fighting against any Jedi and wants power instead. Later, Cal tells Merrin,
I just don't understand why she didn't see the change in him before it was too late.
Merrin replies,
They dreamed together and suffered together. A shared dream is not so easy to wake from.
Dagan and Centauri have this dream that Tanalorr will bring good to the rest of the galaxy. This dream corrupts Dagan, bringing him closer to the dark side. However, Centauri cannot see Dagan anything less than what she knows he can be. She has seen the good in him and has largely ignored what the bad could do. She cannot wake up from this idea that Dagan and Tanalorr are good. This same idea of waking from a shared dream is found throughout the Star Wars universe. When Anakin starts to fall to the dark side, it's Padme that can't believe it. All she has is this dream where Anakin can still be a Jedi and they can still be together despite his commitments.
Anna, I want to have our baby back home on Naboo.
When Obi-Wan confronts her with the fact that Anakin has fallen, she just can't believe it. She rushes to Mustafar and sees for himself what he has become. Even after seeing the truth, she cannot see anything except the good she knows he has. On her deathbed, she states,
There's good in him. I know there's still.
Cal and Jedi survivors starting down the same path. The loss he has experienced starting with his own master in Jedi Fallen Order to the loss of his crew at the beginning and then Seer towards the end makes him fearful, angry, and soon he is faced with his own hate. The only difference is that Merrin is not like Centauri or Padme in this instance.
I know you are in pain, but this is not you! The Empire has taken enough from us! I will not lose you too!
She fights Cal's change and pushes him to think about his true identity, not the good Tanalorr can bring, but that of a man who has to face his good with the bad and take the losses as they come. In fact, Merrin sees this identity continually and pushes Cal gently towards the right path. Centauri cares about Dagan just like Merrin and Padme do with their respective partners. The difference between them is that Centauri couldn't see the darkness that was forming in Dagan and couldn't shake Dagan from those negative emotions and attachments he was forming. She wanted to believe in Dagan so much that she missed his descent into darkness. In the final fight between Dagan and Cal, we see all of his feelings towards Centauri exposed. As Cal lays hurt on the ground, Dagan takes his time taunting Cal about his weaknesses. He states,
Loss, suffering, shame, anger. There's immense power in such emotions, but you were too weak.
His taunt on Cal's weaknesses gives Cal strength. A force hallucination of Centauri forms, causing Dagan to stumble. He sees the one person who believed in him more than ever standing before him. For a moment, we see on his face what he knows he could never do before. He could never harm her. It is only when she states,
You're lost. You've strayed from the path. And you are no Jedi.
that Dagan breaks. His whole identity, not only on Tanalorr, but in being the greatest Jedi of all time, breaks. As soon as Centauri says those words, he knows that Cal is the one behind it. While this isn't necessarily important to Dagan's character or journey, this moment also reflects Cal's own character arc in Jedi Fallen Order.
You are no Jedi! No!
Dagan's anger gets the better of him, and he attacks Cal. Still, the fears and anger he has, he cannot let go. Cal was able to overcome those emotions. As Cal kills him, Dagan has met his finality. It is at this point that players usually make fun of him. He has mentioned Tanalorr so many times, and yet it is this time in which players shouldn't laugh, but instead mourn. In the beginning of the game, he was still Dagan, a renowned Jedi Knight who had won countless battles and had conquered exploration and found a new planet. As the game progresses, he too progresses slowly into madness and his only identity. The Jedi are gone, so he's no longer renowned. The battles he has won only matter to himself. Centauri and Ravis, who are his only friends, are now too past. In Centauri's final message to Dagan, she says,
"The shuttles are leaving. I will not return. Seek me out, or go to Tanalorr."
In this moment, we see her final plea for Dagan to be good. She gives him an ultimatum between her and Tanalorr, making him choose between friendship and goodness, or the power and glory he knows Tanalorr will bring him. However, she is gone. There is no more ultimatum for Dagan. It is just Tanalorr that is left between the two. He even states as much during the final battle.
Now she's gone. Ravis is gone. The Order is gone, and I am free!
Before Cal kills him, he shouts for Tanalorr, a place in which he can still see his dream of power and glory. What else could Dagan do in his final moments? Everything about him was gone, even the glory. There was never going to be a victory over the Empire. He was never going to build his own empire and rule the galaxy. There was no more future for him. He only had his pride in Tanalorr. The legacy of Dagan Gera is one that will haunt Cal in the upcoming game. While Dagan Gera won't get any recognition outside of Jedi Survivor, this game series tends to look at its past and how it will play into the future. Dagan's obsession with Tanalorr because of his loss, suffering, shame, and anger changed him into a character who had nothing more than a planet whom he had placed his whole identity on. If Dagan is a foil for Cal, how will Cal's obsession and control change him? Will Cal fall into the same crisis Dagan did when he lost everything? Will he become nothing more than a former Jedi whose obsession with doing good on Tanalorr failed because of his betrayal and loss? In the end, Dagan Gera wasn't meant to be the main villain. In fact, he was only supposed to be an obstacle for Cal. Still, Dagan Gera had an impact. His story and legacy lives on within Cal's decisions for the future. If he chooses to continue down a path where loss and grief consume his every fiber, then we will see Dagan Gera return. Not as a man, but as a curse in which to inflict pain at the heart of this series.